Tight U-turns used to scare the hell out of me. I don't mean fast corners or highway sweepers. I mean those slow, awkward parking lot U-turns where everyone is watching and your brain suddenly forgets how balance works. If that sounds familiar, stay with me, because tight U turns are easy once you learn one simple secret. And no, it's not strength, talent, or some advanced pro move. It's something almost nobody explains clearly. I'm Matthew. This is Autozium. And today, we're fixing the one maneuver that makes grown riders feel like day one beginners. Why tight U turns feel so hard, and why it's not your fault. Tight U-turns mess with riders because they break the rules your brain learned everywhere else. At normal riding speeds, motorcycles are cooperative. They want to stay upright. Gyroscopic forces stabilize the wheels. Leaning feels intuitive. If you relax, the bike mostly behaves. Slow speed is the opposite world. At walking pace, the motorcycle loses that natural stability. The gyroscopic effect fades. Steering suddenly feels heavy. Balance feels fragile. And instead of helping you, the bike feels like it's constantly negotiating with gravity. That's the part nobody explains clearly. So when riders struggle with tight U-turns, they assume it's a personal failure. I'm bad at balance. I'm not coordinated. I'm just not comfortable yet. But that's not the real issue. The real issue is that slow speed riding requires active control, not passive balance. And most riders never learn how to think that way. At parking lot speeds, the bike won't save you. You have to manage it deliberately. Throttle, clutch, body position, and vision all matter more than they ever do at speed. That's why riders tense up. They feel the bike wanting to tip. They feel the bars get heavy. They feel the margin for error shrink. So they try to be careful. They slow down more. They coast. They stare at the ground. They lock their arms. They hold their breath. And all of that makes the bike harder to control. This is where frustration comes from. Riders think slow speed should be easier than fast riding. But slow speed riding is actually a different skill entirely. It's not about bravery. It's not about strength. It's not about sending it. It's about understanding what the motorcycle needs when it can't rely on speed for stability. Once you accept that tight U-turns aren't about balance, they're about managing instability, the anxiety starts to fade. You stop blaming yourself. You stop trying to muscle through it. You stop waiting for confidence to magically show up. Instead, you start learning the inputs that make the bike calm. That mindset shift alone removes half the fear, because now you're not hoping the bike behaves, you're making it behave. The real secret. Throttle creates stability. The clutch controls speed. This is the part almost nobody explains properly. Most riders approach tight U-turns believing throttle equals danger. They think slow speed means no throttle, so they roll off completely and try to coast. That feels safer, right up until the bike starts wobbling. Here's the truth. A motorcycle is more stable when it's being driven forward than when it's just balancing itself. That doesn't mean speed, it means drive. Think about pushing a shopping cart. It's harder to control when it's standing still, easier when it's rolling. Same principle. The secret to tight U-turns is steady throttle with clutch control, not zero throttle, not aggressive throttle, steady, gentle throttle. The throttle keeps the engine pulling smoothly. That pull stabilizes the bike. It gives the drivetrain tension. It calms the chassis. The clutch is what controls speed. Think of the clutch as a dimmer switch. Throttle stays steady. Clutch fine-tunes how much of that power reaches the wheel. This is where riders usually reverse the roles. And that's why it feels sketchy. When you coast with no throttle, the bike loses stability. The engine braking adds jerkiness. Balance becomes fragile. When you add controlled throttle, the bike settles. Steering smooths out. The bike wants to stand up. That's why experienced riders look relaxed in tight turns. They're not fighting gravity. They're managing it. So instead of thinking, don't add gas, think, add just enough to keep the bike alive. You're not accelerating. You're stabilizing. Once riders feel this for the first time, there's usually a moment of surprise. Oh, the bike feels calmer. That's the breakthrough. From here on, U-turns stop being a guessing game. You're no longer hoping the bike doesn't fall. You're actively keeping it balanced through drive. That single change turns chaos into control. Body position. Let the bike lean, not you. This is the part that feels wrong until it suddenly feels right. At higher speeds, you lean with the bike. That makes sense. The forces are different. The stability is different. At very low speeds, leaning with the bike works against you. In tight U turns, the goal is not to keep everything perfectly aligned. The goal is to separate your body from the bike's lean. You let the motorcycle lean underneath you. You keep your upper body more upright. This is not advanced technique, it's basic physics. When you stay more upright, your weight counterbalances the bike's lean. That makes it harder for the bike to tip over. The bike gets to turn. You get to stay stable. When riders lean with the bike at low speed, they stack weight on top of lean. That's when the bike suddenly feels like it wants to fall inward. So instead, relax your shoulders, bend your elbows, keep your torso tall, let the bike lean beneath you. You're not fighting the bike, you're giving it permission to turn. This also frees up the handlebars. Locked arms make steering heavy. Relaxed arms let the bike steer naturally. A good check is this. If your shoulders feel tight or your forearms burn, you're over-controlling. Low-speed control comes from relaxed inputs, not force. When body position clicks, riders usually say the same thing. The bike feels lighter. That's not imagination. That's physics working in your favor. And once your body stops fighting the lean, the rest of the technique becomes much easier to apply. Vision and braking. The two things that instantly ruin U-turns. If tight U-turns feel unpredictable or nerve-wracking, chances are it's not your throttle control or your balance that's letting you down. It's your eyes and your brakes. These two things ruin more low-speed maneuvers than almost anything else, and most riders don't even realize they're doing it. Let's start with vision, because this is where the mistake begins. At slow speed, your awareness collapses inward. Your brain zooms in on what's close, what feels threatening, and what you're afraid of messing up. The curb, the painted line, the crack in the asphalt, the imaginary audience watching you wobble. So your eyes drop. You look down at the front tire. You look at the ground. You look at the obstacle you're trying to avoid. And the bike follows. This isn't superstition. It's neurology. Your head leads your shoulders lead your arms guide the bars. The bike goes where the bars point. So when your eyes fixate on danger, your body unconsciously steers toward it. That's why riders swear the bike just fell in or pulled toward the curb. It didn't. You guided it there. The fix feels exaggerated, but it works instantly. You turn your head, not just your eyes, and look all the way through the turn, toward where you want to end up, toward the exit, toward the open space. Not halfway, not the apex, not the ground, all the way. This does something powerful. Your posture changes automatically. Your shoulders relax. Your arms loosen. The bars stop feeling heavy. The bike leans smoothly instead of snapping in. Most riders are shocked the first time they do this correctly, because the bike suddenly feels cooperative instead of stubborn. Now let's talk about braking, because this is where panic usually finishes the job. At walking speed, the front brake is incredibly powerful. Too powerful. When you grab front brake mid-turn, even lightly, you compress the front suspension. That steepens the steering angle, tightens the turn radius, and shifts weight forward, all at once. The result? The bike feels like it wants to fall inward. Your confidence spikes downward, and your instinct is to grab more brake. That's how U-turns get dropped. This is why front brake is something you finish before the turn at low speed, not during it. Speed control mid-turn comes from the rear brake. Light pressure, smooth, controlled. The rear brake doesn't collapse the front end. It adds resistance. It stabilizes the bike. It smooths throttle and clutch inputs without upsetting balance. Think of it like this. Throttle gives the bike energy. Clutch controls how much of that energy reaches the wheel. Rear brake calms everything down. Front brake waits until you're straight. Once riders separate braking duties this way, tight turns stop feeling like a gamble. The bike stops surprising them. And fear fades because nothing sudden is happening anymore. Vision leads. Rear brake stabilizes. Everything slows down, mentally and physically. Practice, progress, and why this skill changes everything. Here's where most riders get stuck. They learn the theory, they understand the technique, they even do it right once or twice. And then they stop practicing because slow speed work doesn't feel exciting. It doesn't feel impressive, and it doesn't give you that rush like speed does. But this is where real riders are made. The goal of practicing tight U turns isn't to show off, it's to train your nervous system, to replace panic with predictability, to teach your body what control actually feels like. And the best part? You don't need much. 15 minutes, a quiet lot, two lines, cones, or light poles. That's it. You start wide, wider than your ego wants. Wide circles give you room to breathe. They let you focus on throttle, clutch, and vision without fear getting in the way. This is where trust is built. Once wide turns feel calm, you slowly tighten the circle. Not in one session, not all at once, over time. Progress isn't linear. Some days it clicks, some days it doesn't. That's normal. What matters is consistency, not perfection. This is especially important if you're returning to riding later in life. Fear doesn't mean you're bad at riding. Fear means you understand consequences. The goal isn't to eliminate fear, it's to replace it with skill. Every clean U turn tells your brain, I know what happens when I do this. Every smooth repetition lowers stress. Every calm success builds trust. And trust is where confidence comes from. Not bravado, not speed, not pretending you're fearless. Confidence comes from predictability. When you know how the bike responds to throttle, when you trust the clutch, when you understand how your eyes guide the bike, when you feel how the rear brake stabilizes everything. That predictability changes how you ride everywhere. Traffic feels easier. Parking feels effortless. Stops feel smooth. Tight spaces stop being stressful. And here's the quiet truth most riders never hear. Low speed control is the foundation of high speed confidence. If you can place your bike exactly where you want it at walking pace, everything else becomes simpler. You're no longer hoping the bike behaves, you're guiding it. That's when tight U turns stop being that thing you hate. They become automatic, boring, just another tool in your pocket. And that's when riding truly starts to feel calm, capable, and under your control. Before we wrap up, let me say this clearly. Dropping a bike during slow speed practice is not a failure. It's part of learning. Every experienced rider you admire has had awkward moments at low speed. They just don't post them. What matters is that you practice smart, controlled, and intentionally. Tight U turns aren't about impressing anyone, they're about control, confidence, and being able to put your bike exactly where you want it. Once you learn this secret, everything else gets easier. If this helped you, ride with it, practice it, and remember, you're not bad at this. You just weren't taught it this way. I'm Matthew. This is Autozium. Ride smooth, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.